I will begin with this. You don't feed the gorilla the diet of the polar bear, as Dr. Sebi would say, because polar bears are meat eaters from the Arctic area near the North Pole, and the gorilla is an herbivore vegetarian from the jungles of Africa, which is the basis of this very important conversation. When African people were captured and brought to America as slaves, many aspects of their culture were lost. One of the things that did not make the journey across the Atlantic was their traditional diet. Today, I'm going to explain why this may have contributed to the health issues faced by African Americans today. African cuisine is incredibly diverse and varies from region to region. However, there are some staples that are common across the continent. These include foods like yams, cassava, millet, sorghum, and okra. These foods were not familiar to the Europeans who were enslaving African people and bringing them to America. The Europeans had their own staple crops, such as wheat, barley, and oats, and were not interested in incorporating African foods into their diet. When African people were brought to America, they were forced to adapt to the new environment. They were given rations of food that were based on what the Europeans were eating. This included foods like corn, potatoes, and rice. Over time, African people in America began to incorporate these new foods into their diets. However, they also brought with them their own culinary traditions, which they passed down from generation to generation. Unfortunately, the foods that were provided to African Americans during slavery were often lacking in important nutrients. The result was a diet that was high in carbohydrates and low in protein, vitamins, and minerals. This may have contributed to the health issues that are prevalent in the African American community today, such as diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. While the traditional African diet may not have been brought over to America during slavery, it is still possible to incorporate some of these foods into a healthy diet today. By doing so, we can begin to address some of the health disparities that exist in our communities and honor the culinary traditions of African people. In conclusion, I end this video on the same note I began: you don't feed the gorilla the diet of the polar bear, for this is hugely the reason for the declining health of African Americans today.